So last week was Father's Day, and we did talk about Father Abraham and how he had to send one son away. And here we are with poor Father Abraham being tested again. This time, he's being asked to sacrifice his son. The interesting thing about this story is that you hear it in multiple traditions. Because as I said last week, Father Abraham is the father of the three big religions. So we use the Hebrew scriptures, and so like our Jewish brothers and sisters, we hear this story of the almost sacrifice of Isaac. And our Muslim brothers and sisters hear the story told as the sacrifice of Ishmael. Either way, Father Abraham was given a very tough test. I'm not sure how many of us could pass it. Got to spend much of yesterday with my grandson, and we were doing all sorts of things, and it dawned on me that God could at any time say, yep, I want you to sacrifice that little one. And I'm not sure I could do it. So, what's the difference? I'm not sure. I don't know what I would do in that position. I don't think any of us do. For we want to be faithful, but that faith asks for an awful lot. So I'm going to flip the story a little bit. Because we hear about Abraham and what's going on in Abraham's mind. What about poor Isaac? We don't hear about the trauma that might have been caused to Isaac by what's happening now. What is Isaac going to think of this God of his father? Because it seems like a pretty scary God right now, doesn't it? Understatement, maybe? How could such a God ask his dad to do that? I could be wrong, but I have a feeling that Isaac was going to have a crisis of faith at some point in his life. If not right then and there. How do we overcome those crises of faith? How do we overcome those times when we say, yeah, no, that's not a God I want to have anything to do with? And when people question us about our faith in such a God, it sounds completely legitimate after hearing that story, doesn't it? Why would you want to believe in such a God? God was testing Abraham. God did not actually make Abraham sacrifice his son. But if we look into our book, the New Testament, sacrifice is there. God's son. God did not ask more of Abraham than God was prepared to give. I remember being asked at my very first church how it was I could get the young people to go out and get all of the leaves raked up. What you need to know is between the church and the Women's Institute Hall were 6 huge maples. And of course, all the leaves came off at the same time. And it took over a week. Had the youth out there after school every day getting these leaves up. People kept saying, how do you get them to do that? Like they literally get out of their cars and watch us and ask, how do you get them to do that? Usually I handed the person a rake and then said, have you noticed who's with them? What do you mean? It was my rake I just gave you. I'm out here doing it too. Because God is with us. And we can and will do just about anything if we know God is with us. Sometimes it's a challenge. Other times, we can feel God's presence in a very positive way. It's easy when we can feel God in a positive way. Sometimes it's easy to forget in the good times that God is actually right there. That empty chair, God's sitting there. Sorry, Keith, if that makes you uncomfortable that God's sitting right next to you, sorry. And other times when we're going through this tough stuff, that just looks like an empty chair. Isaac was going to have to find his way later to know that that chair had God sitting in it, and that God would never have hurt him. But God needs to know that we are committed to God. So what do we do to acknowledge our commitment? You start by doing what you're doing this morning. Coming here to share time together, coming online perhaps to share with us, watching later this week to join with God's people. Because as we share the peace of Christ at the beginning of every service, it is a reminder that God is within each one of us. So sitting next to you is a spark of God. What are you going to do with your spark? And I realize that the idea of starting a fire on a day when it's already 26 or 27 degrees at 10:30 in the morning is not something you're going to think about. But what's your spark going to light? You don't know till it happens. Abraham didn't know until he was actually asked to do the thing that he could do the thing. Sometimes we're asked to do the thing, and until we come out the other side, we didn't know we could. And birds like to think they can do a lot of things too. But we can see the glass. So we know that sometimes there are barriers. But we also know that with God all things are possible, and we can just keep going. It may not be easy. But look around you. You have people to walk with you. That is not an empty chair. God is with us. Wherever we go, whatever we do, God is there. Through the hard stuff and the not so hard stuff. Go with God. Amen.